This is the 11th hour. With news, commentary, and answers to viewer questions from the Authorized King James Bible. Here is Pastor Greg Miller.
There's a new hit piece out on the Jews. It's titled Marching to Zion. It's written and put out by a media whore named Steven Anderson, whose original claim to fame was being tasered by border police, which he was prepared to videotape, complete with him squealing like a stuck pig. And that video went viral, and then Alex Jones introduced the conspiracy world to Mr. Anderson on his InfoWars radio show. And from that point, Anderson has provided us with a mix of attack videos and his wild and unbiblical method of what he calls preaching. And then he jumps in front of every TV camera pointed his way, and he also frequents radio talk shows at every opportunity. And sadly, Anderson parades himself as a King James Bible believer. And I take him at his word. But the problem is that while he may hold faith in the words of the King James Bible, he has very little understanding of those words. And he preaches rank heresies and false doctrine on a regular basis. And he denies the dispensational truth that always causes the sort of error that Anderson espouses, such as his claim that homosexuals, biblically called sodomites, should be executed. If he could rightly divide the Word of God, he could avoid his errors, or many of those errors anyway. And that leads us to where we're going with this video, and a short series of videos to follow. You see, Steven Anderson replaces Israel with the church. And we'll see this more clearly in a later video, if the Lord wills and tarries his rapture of the church, which could happen at any moment. But because Anderson believes he's a Jew and is now the true Israel, he feels free to curse and verbally attack the nation of Israel today. And he's done so to such an extent that he's come out with this 90-minute hit piece on the Jews and Israel titled Marching to Zion. Now, from the outset, we want to make a couple of things clear. First of all, we're not just making this movie to respond to that video, Marching to Zion. We're going to answer anti-Semites. And Anderson simply makes it easy for us because he lays out most of the major arguments that you've heard from anti-Semites down through the years, including what came out of Martin Luther's pen and Hitler's mouth and Goebbels and all the other Jew haters. And we also want to make it clear that some of what Anderson says is true. After all, no lie stands alone. Deception is always cast with a bit of truth, and that's the way it's best received. And the lies are sometimes subtle. For that reason, we're going to take them on one at a time with our own responses to the lies and distortions found in the documentary film Marching to Zion. So let's get right to it. This Marching to Zion video is a very well-made production. It's visually impressive. I say it's slick. I don't mean that in a bad way. It's very well done. And the first segment is a nice, organized, brief history of Israel. But we're barely approaching the 3-minute mark when we're confronted with a false claim.
Starting in 2 Kings 16, the people of the southern kingdom became known as Jews after the name of the kingdom of Judah.
In this clip, the claim is made that starting in 2 Kings 16, only Hebrews in the southern kingdom were called Jews, and this was because of the name of Judah. This is false. Let's be clear that as the narration in the film mentions in passing, the members of the tribes of Benjamin and Levi were also called Jews. In Esther 3:6, Haman sought to destroy all the Jews that were throughout the whole kingdom of Ahasuerus, even the people of Mordecai. And according to Esther 2:5, Mordecai was a Benjamite. Now this begs the question, why would they be called Jews after Judah if they are of another tribe? And one answer is the fact that the word transliterated in Hebrew for Jew in English is pronounced Yehudi. And the word Jews is Yehudim. And so the case is made that this translates not the word Judah, but simply as the people of God. And as God's chosen, then all descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are the Yehudim, or the Jews. And this is exactly what we see in Scripture and in history. Whenever we reach the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, we see that the first great regathering of the Jews has taken place in preparation for the coming of Messiah. And we'll discuss the second great regathering in a later section. And at the time of Jesus' birth, all descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were referred to as Jews. Any biblical or historical research will show that if you lived in Israel under Roman rule, you were a Jew. And in Luke 2:36 we're told, and there was one Anna, a prophetess, the daughter of Phanuel of the tribe of Asher. Now that's the tribe Asher, and that was part of the northern kingdom. So this clip is not true.
Starting in 2 Kings 16, the people of the southern kingdom became known as Jews after the name of the kingdom of Judah. Because of
Anna was of the tribe of Asher, the northern kingdom, and she was considered a Jew. When the wise men appeared in the nation of Israel, they approached the Jews, and in Matthew 2:2 saying, "Where is he that is born King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east and are come to worship him." There's no indication that they thought only southern kingdom Hebrews were Jews. And right up to 70 AD, Josephus testified, and others testified, that the Hall of Records remained where all Jews of all tribes kept record of their genealogy, all 12 tribes, and they were all called Jews. When choosing the 12, who's going to argue that not all 12 apostles were Jews? That would be just ludicrous. Yet in Mark 3:18, we are told that one of Jesus' Jewish apostles was Simon the Canaanite. So not only were descendants of all 12 tribes of Israel Jews, but so were those who were identified with having pagan descent. Whenever Jesus started his ministry, he said in Matthew 15:24, "I am not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel." He did not say the house of Judah. But in John 4:22, Jesus said, "Ye worship ye know not what." We know what we worship. He says, "We, for salvation is of the Jews." And yet he's come for the house of Israel, and they are Jews. And when they crucified Jesus, who had come unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel, John 19:19 says, Pilate wrote a title and put it on the cross, and the writing was, "Jesus of Nazareth, the King of the Jews." The whole house of Israel were referred to as Jews. And all those claiming that Jews are only of the southern tribe, or specifically of the tribe of Judah, as some claim, they're bearing false witness. This clip again in Marching to Zion is absolutely false.
Starting in 2 Kings 16, the people of the southern kingdom became known as Jews after the name of the kingdom of Judah.
And there's much more that can be said. For example, after the resurrection of Jesus, Pentecost came. And in Acts 2, we read in verses 7 through 11, "And they were all amazed and marveled, saying one to another, Behold, are not all these who speak Galileans? And how hear we every man in our own tongue wherein we were born? Parthians and Medes and Elamites and the dwellers in Mesopotamia and in Judea and in Cappadocia, in Pontus and Asia, Phrygia and Pamphylia, in Egypt, and in the parts of Libya about Cyrene, and strangers of Rome, Jews and proselytes. On the day of Pentecost, they didn't make a difference which tribe you came from, or even if you were a proselyte, you were considered a Jew. So this dichotomy that anti-Semites and haters of the modern state of Israel make, claiming that the word Jew only refers to the southern kingdom, it's just one big ugly lie. The examples go on and on. In Acts 26, verses 6 and 7, Paul says, "And now I stand and am judged for the hope of the promise made of God unto our fathers, unto which promise our 12 tribes, instantly serving God day and night, I hope to come. For which hope's sake, King Agrippa, I am accused of the Jews." Now he said, "Unto the which promise our 12 tribes." And he refers to them as Jews. And Paul makes no difference or clarification between his reference of the 12 tribes and the Jews. And his hearers understood that all descendants of all 12 tribes are Jews. And this point is very important that we're making. In reality, the whole basis of the documentary, Marching to Zion, and the very bedrock foundational claim of nearly all anti-Semites is that today's Jews are not really Jews. So you have to deal with each false claim one at a time, and by doing so, you see that the whole ugly mess is built upon lies and distortions of biblical truth and history. All descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are Jews, and we're approaching a time when God will raise up 144,000 Jews of the 12 tribes of Israel. In Revelation 7, you read about it, who will be hated by the whole world and will be murdered as they preach the gospel of the kingdom during the time of Jacob's trouble. So you can see that just as Jesus prophesied, the day has come whenever professing Christians and others claiming to serve God will hate the Jews, and when they slander and attack them, and the violence will get worse, you can rest assured that these deceived people will think that they do God service by hating and persecuting the Jews that they believe are not really Jews. And if you don't believe me, watch as these guys like Anderson join with the Muslims and the Catholics in their hatred of the Jews.
Hey everybody, Pastor Stephen Anderson here from Faithful Word Baptist Church in Tempe, Arizona, to tell you about an exciting event we're doing later this month. We're calling this Marching to Dearborn. And on June 26th, Friday, we're going to be having a great big soul-winning marathon in Dearborn, Michigan. And you might think, well, why are you going to Dearborn, Michigan? Well, because Dearborn, Michigan has the greatest Arab population in the United States. There are about 40,000 Arabs living in Dearborn, and we just finished making the Arabic version of Marching to Zion. We've got the film Marching to Zion fully dubbed into Arabic, and we want to get this thing out. We're gonna bring about 1,000 DVDs of this movie and get these into the hands of these Arabs in Dearborn, Michigan. You see, most of these Arabs in Dearborn are Muslims, of course, and we all know that the Muslims are going to hell in a handbasket. They're not saved. They don't believe that Jesus is the Son of God. And although a lot of these Muslims are probably not necessarily lining up to hear the gospel of Jesus Christ, they are very receptive to this film. And they will watch this movie, Marching to Zion. And in this film, there's a very clear presentation of the gospel at the very end in their native language of Arabic.
It's sick. He's going to use his propaganda film to foment hatred of the Jews. And he calls it soul winning. And you ain't seen nothing yet. And if you claim to be a real man or woman of God, you'd better find your spine and get prayed up. Because standing for Israel is about to get ugly.